What's up, everybody? We are back. John Delarose here. John Delarose, and I'm not johndelarose.com, just delarose.com with DELARROZ.com. You'd think I'd get good at like the intro shill at some point, but I just don't get better at it for some reason. Why do you think that is? Do I need to take courses on like how to YouTube properly?
I don't know, man. I'm the wrong person to ask. I've got like maybe 6 YouTube vids, and most of them are just me jamming on the guitar.
Fair. Yeah, maybe I need to take one of those master classes about how to just do things right. So I'm going to restart our intro now. Hey, everybody, we are back. John Delarose here, delarose.com. That's DELARROZ.com. Head to the link in my description below, sign up for my newsletter, and enjoy the show. You will get a bunch of free stuff for signing up for the newsletter, and then I will stay in contact with you. You'll get some notifications sometimes about things and all of that stuff. Yes, be a shill. Ask me how. It's good stuff. Hey, Roshi, welcome. Yes, this is the inaugural edition of the Dankstream, featuring our friend from Kursova magazine, which I originally called it Sursova magazine back in the day, and then you corrected me.
Yep, with hard C, a Latin C.
A Latin C. Ooh, that's fancy. So is there other fancy stuff in your magazine? Because if you're using Latin things?
We've got a lot of fancy stuff in this upcoming issue. We have stories, illustrations, and comics for the first time ever.
Oh, this is that the Axe.
Bad Axe, yeah.
Bad Axe. Yeah, so you actually showed me a preview of this back in the day, and it looks freaking awesome. So I'm excited for this. As you can see, I'm a backer, so I back all of their books here, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I gotta post places that we're live right now, and we'll talk about fun stuff today. I have zero interest in actual politics or actual inaugurations. So my shtick I was going to do for this is I'm getting inaugurated again as the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction, for uncontested for 6 years running, 5 years running, 4 years running, whatever it is.
You will remain uncontested until I stop editing the magazine and get back to writing.
Nice. But I'm going to change my identity to Latinx so that I can fit in better and not get banned. Are you going to be Latinx also?
I will be Goblin X. Did you see that there was a guy who was talking about how in Dungeons and Dragons there was a racial stereotype that kobolds and goblins were portrayed as Latino, and I have never ever heard of this before in my entire life. I don't think it's true, but I entirely support it, and as someone of Cuban descent, go for it. Make your kobolds Latino.
Wow. No, I missed that one. That's really funny because I always thought every evil character. I thought they always characterized that every evil race of characters in any fantasy setting is always a black person. Like that's what I thought. But I guess they're moving on at this point.
Yeah. I mean, oh, it's nuts.
Who are the? I guess dwarves would be fantasy Jews, in that case.
Maybe. I don't know what they,
because they hide their gold underground, you know.
Might be German.
Might be German.
They're known for their engineering and megastructures.
Oh man. Speaking of which, my favorite Jewish voice in science fiction, the leading Jewish voice in science fiction, Yakov Merkin. Welcome.
Hey, Yakov.
And I think I've posted this most places at this point, so hopefully we're getting some people in there. Hit that like and comment and subscribe button, just like Peter says right here. He is getting us going for the hour so that we can get some people in here. I've not streamed in like 2 weeks. Everybody should be excited and be here. Just happy to hear from people. Happy to not talk about like the election. I mean, geez. I mean, anything but that. Anything but that, right? So, but I guess, it's you're probably actually here on a bad day just because everybody's kind of like in that mood right now, right?
Yeah, well, but hey, maybe people will want to tune into this instead of watch the hell that's unfolding before them.
You would think so. Hey, Mega Buster's here.
Mega.
Welcome. Welcome, friends. We're playing Connect Friend. I got this I got a meme right now, and it was wholesome and happy. And so I just want to share this with all of you because this is what we're trying to do right here. We are trying to play the classic friend in a row game.
Oh.
And just all be wholesome friends together. Hey, Bradford, welcome. So what do you got going? Have you actually been on my show before? I don't think you actually have.
I feel like we've maybe done this once before. I think for the last time I actually tried to do a Kickstarter for something.
I remember talking about it, but I don't remember actually doing it.
I feel like I was on for Wild Stars for when we were doing the.
Oh, you were on for Wild Stars. That's right. Yeah,
35th anniversary of Wild Stars.
that's fun. Cool.
And our 5th anniversary issue is going to have more Wild Stars, so we hope people enjoy that.
Oh, crap. I guess there was a swastika in that meme. Oh, no.
You're going to be demonetized, John.
Gosh dang it. Oh, man. Okay. Well, I disavow. So there we go. Oh, my gosh. That's hilarious. Of course 4chan would do that, right?
You just disavowed 6,000.
Disavow. I disavow all that stuff. So there you go. I didn't even notice it. They're getting better at like, I guess hiding stuff that'll get you in trouble in plain sight.
John, sounds like you fell into a bag.
Did I fall into it? What the hell's happening to me? This has happened before also, so I don't know what's going on. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you sound fine now.
Okay, bizarre. All right, well, I better go take that meme down off of social media where I posted it. So before it gets too far out there. Whoops.
Before it gets too spicy.
Yeah, it does. Okay, delete.
Straight into the eyeballs.
There we go. There we go. It's all deleted. I wish somebody didn't bring that up in the chat though, because now I pulled that up in the chat, and now I'm like really under the algorithm, like their watchful eye of Sauron.
Oh no.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of Lord of the Rings fantasy, tell people who you are and like what your whole spiel is, because some people, I think most people know who are in here, because I do plug you guys quite a bit. Hey DJ, but on the other hand, there probably might be some new people because I got a lot of comic people who don't read a lot of like prose and stuff. So do your spiel.
Well, I am Pete Alexander. I'm the owner and editor of Crosova Publishing. We have been publishing science fiction, fantasy, pulp style fiction since 2016. Started our magazine, Crosova magazine of heroic fantasy and science fiction, back in 2016. We rebranded and started a new volume with a new numbering in 2019 as Magazine of Thrilling Adventure and Daring Suspense, when we found a lost, previously unpublished Edgar Rice Burroughs Tarzan story that was completed by Michael Tierney. And we thought that was a good place to do sort of a rebrand, relaunch, and it's been pretty big ever since. We have put up 15 issues of the magazine, 3 special issues, published a number of anthologies. We published the Illustrated Stark, which was an illustrated edition of Lee Brackett's Eric John Stark stories from
Yeah,
Planet
that was really cool. I do want to go over a couple of these things in depth. I mean, you guys have done a ton, and you need to get more recognition, in my opinion. So that's why we have you here. So let's start with the Tarzan thing. So you got a hold of this, like, I guess, unfinished Tarzan story. Like how far from completion was it?
Well, it was complete when we got it because Michael had already completed it. The story goes years and years and years ago, Danton Burroughs, before he passed away, had this fragment of a Tarzan story from the Young Tarzan Jungle Tales period, and he hadn't been able to find anybody who was willing to finish it because, they were afraid that it would introduce too many continuity issues into the canon. But Michael Tierney was friends with Danton Burroughs.
Tarzan already has terrible continuity issues, and I've only read 2 of the books.
Yeah, well, I mean,
okay.
Anyway, Michael actually took this fragment and finished it, but they hadn't been able to do anything with it because the comic rights and the book rights were tied up in various deals. I think with either Bantam or Ballantine and Dark Horse at the
And
time.
this is with the Edgar Rice Burroughs estate people, right? So
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
interesting is some of these characters. I think Tarzan as a character is technically public domain, but they have a
He's
trademark.
public domain, but the name is trademark.
Yeah.
But
So
anyway,
it's
what
really
happened
messy.
was
Yeah.
there was the fire that destroyed a lot of Danton Burroughs' art and records, and he passed away almost immediately after the fire happened.
Wow.
So all records of this fragment was lost. So Michael Tierney had one of the digital copies, and another guy who had an Edgar Rice Burroughs zine had the physical copy. But the estate, nobody knew anything about this fragment for years. It was just kind of gone and lost until Michael was like, "Hey, how would you be interested in publishing this lost Tarzan story that I just finished?" I'm like, "Would I?" Because he'd gotten reconnected with the estate through the 4-volume art chronology project that he'd been doing.
Oh, cool.
And so he figured this was his end to get permission to finally publish this fragmentary story that he'd finished. And it took until the very last day for the Burroughs estate to actually figure out, no, this was a lost actual Edgar Rice Burroughs Tarzan story. So we were having to make changes to the final contract and pen on the phone with the estate while we were getting things signed.
Cool.
And about the time we made the announcement, the guy who had the physical copy of the manuscript turned up and said, "Oh, hey, I've had this manuscript in my possession over all these years when Danton asked me to get it typed up for him." So
Oh,
that's
wow.
the story of how we had a lost Edgar Rice Burroughs Tarzan story in our 2019 relaunch of the magazine.
That's so cool. And it's kind of weird to me how Tarzan as a character, he was the biggest character period for decades. And over the last 20, 30, 40 years, I mean, they've made a couple Disney bad animation versions of it, but that's about it. I mean, they've just really let this property dwindle and disappear. And I don't understand why.
I'm sure there's a ton of reasons for it, and only some of them probably have to do with the fact that it's technically public domain. Because
Mm.
people give the Burroughs estate a lot of crap, but they've actually done a decent job of keeping a lot of that stuff in print. And there are a lot of new Burroughs properties and adaptations coming out. Just a lot of them are comics. Michael Tierney actually has a weekly Sunday strip style adaptation of Beyond the Farthest Star that he's been doing for a few years.
Oh, that's cool. Interesting. Yeah, I guess there are a lot of comics coming out of John Carter and all that from, I think it's IDW who puts those out at this point also.
Yeah, IDW and Dynamite.
But Dynamite, that's right. Interesting. Yeah, the copyright thing's pretty interesting, and I think we were sort of shit talking about a book that was doing something the other day. I think it was a Kickstarter project where they were pushing
It was a woke reimagining of John Carter.
It was a woke reimagining. That's
John
right.
Carter
That's right.
was a black Union soldier.
Oh man, let's make fun of this real quick. What's the actual title? Do you know?
I don't remember.
Princess of Mars. Let's see if we can find it on here.
Prince of the Silent Planet.
Prince of the Silent Planet. Here we are. So yes, and here's just another example of everybody. If you're like get woke, go broke. So for some reason they were trying. I don't know why you would be writing a book, like not even a comic. I don't think this is. Is it a oh, it is a comic. Okay, so there is art costs. Okay, but still $35,000 was the goal for this, and I don't know why it was that. How long did they say this was? Pages.
I don't know. I will take opportunities to dunk on them once we've actually raised more money than they did.
104 pages. Okay, so 104 pages is almost 2 Flying Sparks, and I can get Flying Sparks made for about 10 grand. So really what they need is 20, but they didn't get close to that either. Very funny. So the whole concept of this is that John Carter, a black Civil War veteran, so they've replaced John Carter, who was a Confederate officer in the original version, with a black replacement, who I suppose probably works for the North, I would gather. Maybe not. Is he? I don't know. Let's take a look at this.
Unless he was one of those black Confederate cavalrymen, which would be extra spicy.
That would be extra spicy, but I'm guessing they didn't go with the spicy version. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Let's look at this. So this is a poorly set scenes. You've got black children running. He's been running towards something better all of his life. Oh, he's running from white people, of course. And then that's not running towards something. That's running. By the way, the dialogue doesn't match the picture. He's not running towards something. They're running away from something. First off, but oh well. Dialogue needs to match the picture. This is my editorial hat immediately. Number two, I don't understand what that picture is about. He's got swords. And then number three, run long enough, you stop believing better exists. He's running from people in hoods, I guess. I guess those are supposed to be Klansmen. They kind of look like Studio Ghibli bear spirit creatures or something, you know? No? I don't know. You're not helping me roast this very good.
I'd rather not even call attention to it at all.
Okay.
I mean, it's garbage.
I like having fun. But they want to take everything good. How can you do Barsoom without cheesecake? Let's see. Let's see the Deja Thoris appears to just be a generic minority girl rather than a sexy Martian. So that's it. And that's why it fails. So you're taking a property and taking everything fun out of it, and then adding a little politics on top, and then rinse repeat. Speaking of fun, let's look at this. Hello. We're gonna get in real trouble with YouTube on this today with some of the stuff we're pulling up. I guess this is J. Scott Campbell, and J. Scott Campbell has his own style. It's cheesecake, but you can't say it's not fun. It's definitely fun. Look at that. Cool. I didn't know that existed until this point. So there we go. Very sexy Martian. There we go. Hey, JG, welcome. Eli, welcome. All right. So we'll go back to your Kickstarter at this point. It's interesting. Whoops. Here's the recommended Kickstarters for me. Do you think I should actually? I like Dice Tower. They're good people. Let's see.
I never really understood the whole Dice Tower thing, though. I mean, like, you have dice, you roll them. You don't need a tower to roll your dice.
I've never used a dice tower. Correct. I've used a dice cup because that kind of makes sense in some instances. And it is kind of fun to shake dice cups. But the dice tower thing, yeah, it doesn't make sense because you can just roll it, like you said. But the Dice Tower they're talking about it's a YouTube platform where they review board games and things like that. So yeah,
okay.
They're pretty fun.
There are so many people who do like Kickstarters for I'm making dice towers.
There are a lot of those also, and playing cards. It's like okay, and if you know anything about playing cards at this point, you can go to various websites and just print out playing cards with different backs. You can just put your own art. Maybe I should do that. Maybe we should both do that.
Yeah,
with our brands.
That might not be a bad idea.
There's your thought. I think you can make dice too. You could probably put the Kursova logo on like the 20 or something like that, or if it's a 6-sided dice on the 1.
Yeah, it's usually the 6-siders that people make. So they're probably the cheapest to make.
6-siders people make, but Magic the Gathering does their whole like dice with the 20 being whatever the set symbol is, right? So that's what I was thinking. I don't know. Cool stuff. All right. So you have a $7,000 goal. So we're going to have to really push this, guys, because this is a really worthy cause. And basically there's just, I don't know, there's not a lot of other good short science fiction and fantasy content out there, period. You've got pretty much you and Story Hack at this point, and that's it. I think, unless I'm wrong. Of course, somebody's gonna be like, "Oh, I have a magazine." I'm gonna be like, "Oh, crap." But
yeah, we're the two that have been around longest and are still active in doing stuff. There have been a few others, but they've either gone under or they've only put out one volume so far.
yeah, there's a lot of starts and stops, but you're the like real consistent like
Yeah,
dude who
5 years,
has been
man,
showing up.
5 years.
Yeah, cool.
So one of
5
the
years is
reasons why
incredible.
we're trying to raise for so much is this is the first time we've done illustrations, and art costs money.
Right.
Art is always going to be one of your biggest expenses on any publishing things, whether it's books just for the cover, whether it's for interior illustrations or comics. So something people have asked us about ever since we got started, like, well, when are you going to have illustrations? When are you going to have illustration? Well, we've got illustrations now. We just need you guys to help us pay for them. As you can see right there, there is the red
Dark
Queen
Philly.
with Achilles Hister the Elder, one of the villain. Well, they're actually both villains of the novel that we're serializing, the Artomic Paradigm.
Awesome. Yeah, I like Dark Philly's work quite a bit.
Yeah,
And there's your Bad Axe, which you mentioned. So
yes.
are they going to be running full color inside the magazine?
I wish we'd be able to do it, but only the covers were full color originally. It
Gotcha.
was one of the black and white boom comics from '88 or from '89 to '90, I think.
So that makes sense that you can throw that in there pretty good with a magazine. It'll fit pretty well. Nice.
Yeah, we
Ah,
had a bunch of digital cleanup that Michael Tierney had to do for it because Paul didn't have the original artwork,
hmm.
because it was all originally work for hire from Malibu when he did it, but he double checked and said, "I have the rights to everything. If you can scan it, you can reprint it." I'm like, "Well, we'll get it done." And since Michael Tierney is just a god of digital restoration of artwork, because he got so much experience restoring artwork from the last 100 odd years for his Edgar Rice Burroughs 4 volume art chronology, it was not too terribly hard for him to do digital restoration on 30-year-old comic.
Yeah. Very cool.
The original artwork there that you see, the original version of it had a shield for the Malibu Adventurer imprint on the guy's face there. You couldn't even tell that guy's face was covered up originally.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, down in the lower corner on the left. And so he cleaned up some of the cracks. He cleaned up some of the uh, the pricing on the covers. So even though we're not going to be able to reprint the covers in color, we are reprinting them in black and white, and we're reprinting the full 3 issue run. They're about 28 to 30 pages each issue, and this one is reprinting the first issue in this volume.
Awesome. Yeah, looks like you got an awesome thing going here again. Of course, I'm backing this. The link's in the description below for folk who want to check this out and highly recommend it. I get I get everything they put out. So I've definitely enjoyed a lot of their short fiction over the years, and they've really pushed to have a different tone and style than all the other short fantasy and science fiction out there, and that's why I like them. So I see that Jim Brayfogel's Mongoose and Meek Rat are returning, and that was you serialized or you put together a compilation of those stories last year, also.
Yeah, we've made arrangements with Jim Brayfogle to serialize the entire run of Mongoose and Meerkat. There's 18 stories. We have the rights to all of them. This is going to be Mongoose and Meerkat number 8, I believe.
Oh wow! So there's a lot more to come. Cool.
Yeah, and starting with this issue, we're serializing it one story per issue. In the past, we'd done maybe one or two stories a year, but after we put out the first volume of Mongoose and Meerkat stories illustrated by Dark Philly, it was just like, this one hit it out of the park for us. This is one of the best releases we've done. We're just going to go ahead and cut you a check now for the rights to serialize all the rest of the stories.
That's awesome. So you pay all your guys up front, which is
Yeah, we
very
pay on
rare.
acceptance. We pay on
Very rare.
acceptance. It comes out to about $80 to $100 a story. It's based on word count, but we pay one and a quarter cent per word, which is technically semi-professional rates.
Yeah, but you know what?
as
Most
far as
most short fiction out there, just because it has such trouble selling in today's market, really
authors are basically trying to give their fiction
they
away. You
are.
could
Yeah,
have this is something we talked about with R.J. Carter, and how there's so much short fiction out there that authors want to get published that they'll take token rates or nothing at all. But we really want to support the authors who are writing the kind of fiction that I enjoy, so we try to pay them better than token.
and I think you get a higher quality of submissions when that's the case too, because there is something to be said about you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. I appreciate that about you guys. All right. Yakov says that it is very fun. He just got to read his copy a couple weeks ago. DC's Mars owes a lot to Barsoom and Ray Bradbury. I'm not, I guess that involves the Martian Manhunter character. I'm not a big DC guy. I know I read some DC, but I'm not familiar with DC's Mars that much.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know a whole lot about it because I mean, I see Martian Manhunter in a few books, but like I'm not like I don't follow him. But I understand that there's the psychic and projection. That so that kind of jives with the Martian Chronicles take on Mars.
Yeah. Oh, makes sense.
In
We
fact,
got
just
Cassie
recently I
Blonde in
saw
here from Point Man Comics. He's talking about his comic, Point Man Comics, and I have read the first issue of this, and very good comic, a nice little pulpy space adventure there. Good stuff. Cool. Sorry, I cut you off.
I don't know. I was just saying that just the other day I saw the episode of Ray Bradbury Theater where the Earthmen land on Mars and they're like, "We're here from Earth," and the Martians are all like, "Oh, these guys are clearly crazy," and they send him off to the asylum because they're like, "This guy's just a Martian, and his delusions are creating these projections of his crew and his spaceship."
Bradbury Theater, is that streaming somewhere right now?
Comet has the rights, so you can watch Comet streaming on their website for free. It's
Oh,
at
that's pretty
the
cool.
broadcast TV network.
When did that originally air? I guess in the late 80s.
Yeah, I think it was in the 80s.
Here we are. I don't think
Yeah,
I ever saw it. So I might take a second to
it's a pretty good show.
do
And so
this.
and since, like I said, since it's on Comet, it's free streaming. I don't know if you
Nice.
can stream it on demand, but it's free.
What do you do? Just take random science fiction stories and adapt them, or
Mostly his own short fiction stories
that's
adapted
cool.
to little 20-minute TV vignettes.
That makes sense. That's pretty cool. They seem to be low rated, most of these, though. Oh no, Tyrannosaurus Rex 4.4. What happened here? Oh well. Something else to check out. I like those little anthology shows. We don't get much anthology anything anymore, and I think it's just because of the sort of binge habits that people have. Is just they don't like to just like take short vignettes and then move on to the next one, which is what makes it hard for short fiction. I find it a little bit refreshing because I don't have time to read a 12-book series, and so I makes me happy when I get a magazine and I can read a 10-page story personally. But what do you think is happening with the habits of people, and why is everything getting so decompressed like that, storytelling wise?
Um, well, it kind of depends on which medium you're talking about, because with comics, I think it's part of it. Just it's easier to knock out a really loosey goosey script and have it filled in with artwork and not tell those tightly paced stories that they used to back in the day. With anything in the filmed medium, it's because I think viewing habits have changed. With streaming, people tend to binge watch shows, so that decompressed storytelling is like, well, we'll binge watch this show and maybe there'll be a payoff after I've sunk 8.5 hours into it.
Right. Awesome. Wow, we got Ethan Van Sciver in the chat. Hey, Ethan, welcome, and I'm glad you're here. Cool. Nasser, welcome to the chat. He takes back what he said in his 1984 video today. Nasser's been reading 1984. which I've actually never read 1984. Should I be admitting that live on the air when I'm supposed to be a literary guy?
If you heard the David Bowie song, I think that still counts.
Is that good enough? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it's good enough.
I've never read 1984. I have read Animal Farm though. So is it the same gist?
That's the important one because it's furry.
Because it's furry. Nice. Nasser says he loves our corporate overlords, obey, consume, and pay taxes. I have to 100% agree with Nasser that we should obey, consume, and pay taxes, and YouTube should give me head pats and algorithm love for agreeing with this, right? No?
No comments.
No comments. Undead Ramen, welcome to the chat. Happy to have you here. Yeah, so we're in a weird spot.
I'm not ignoring Mega's question. I'm trying to think about it here.
Oh, I didn't see this one. What kind of pulp story would you like to publish that has never been submitted to your magazine? It should be an elf story.
We've published elf stories.
Yeah, you
before.
have.
We've published some pretty good elf stories. Really, I think I think we've hit a lot of the stuff that I like and would like to publish. Haven't got any Monster Girl stories that are quite what I need, that would quite fit with what I'm doing with Cursova. I would like to see those. Really, I would like to get more CL Moore type fantasy, the weird mix of gothic horror with science fiction and fantasy stuff.
You don't want just like a cat girl with who's cute with ears who goes yeah.
Yeah. One thing that is kind of exciting is we have a story that is Zoids meet Saint Seiya that we're going to be running as our cover story in summer.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we'll finally be running a mech story here in Cursova.
All right. Cool stuff. So please check that out. And yeah, that's I guess we'll open questions or whatever since we're kind of already there. Did you saw the sort of sad puppy news this morning of Larry Correia getting banned from his own Facebook group? Or did you?
No, I didn't. I don't actually follow Larry that closely. You know, haven't followed a lot of that crowd for a while.
I follow the news because the news gets you clicks, and I saw that he made quite a post about how terrible it is that he's banned from his own Facebook group and censorship, etc.
So did Facebook ban him, or did his group ban him?
It was Facebook banned him from his group. Like Facebook made it so he could not get into his own group. It's a very bizarre thing. Like
that is bizarre.
Why would he be able to post to his personal page and not his group? But I don't know. I'm banned from all groups right now, but it's a temporary thing. And this sort of thing happened, I guess about 3-4 days ago. And I've heard that a lot of Trump supporters got banned, or at least suspended. Well, let's call it suspended because it's not banned. And it seems to be because I guess they want to deter people planning inauguration hijinks or something like that, which, I don't know. I'm going to guess that's what it is. But they of course, in their corporate overlord fashion, don't give you an actual reason when they do it.
I'm laughing at Steve's comment down here.
What's that?
I'm laughing at Steve's comment down here.
Larry blocked me 6 months ago because I spoke about magic dirt and oh yeah. I think I remember you getting blocked, Steve. I've been blocked from Larry Correia for 2 years, so I'm not particularly sympathetic. So, and that's exactly what Ethan Van Sciver says here too. Banned from your Facebook group, you're beaten with your own shoe. And yeah, that's kind of one of my philosophies, and I'm on every platform, as many as I can possibly get on. Because if one bans me or whatever, I haven't just suddenly lost everything. And I think that's so important not to put all your eggs in one basket. And that includes the alt platforms, even the ones that claim to be free speech or whatnot. You want to be on it, all of them, because you saw what happened to Parler real quick. Parler just went right down the tubes because they were not as anti-fragile as they looked like. You never know. You could run across, the site owner might get mad at you or something like that, and you might get banned. So you should be all over.
Well, we're
And
on Minds,
that's
we're
that.
on MeWe.
Is Minds the spot where everybody's kind of like coalescing at the moment? That seems to be what I'm hearing in the
Yeah,
chatter.
at this point, it's finally to the point where there are enough people that I recognize that Minds has worthwhile content in the feed. It's got a decent signal noise ratio over there.
Okay. What's different about what type
Something
of
that
site is
I've
it?
never had.
What type of site is it? Like, is it like a Twitter
Um,
clone or what?
it's a weird hybrid of Twitter, Facebook, and I think it has a blog system, and it also has its own built-in cryptocurrency. It's really weird.
Oh, interesting.
It's it's not super intuitive, but it seems to be the best place that a lot of people are going right now.
I was asked to invest in a startup social media company about 2 years ago, and the guy did the similar thing where you get like a cryptocurrency sort of thing, which not only is reputation, but eventually he plans to use it as actual currency. And I never figured out how he was going to make. I don't even understand Bitcoin, like how people assume it has value. Like it doesn't make sense. Somebody says something has value. I get why people kind of buy into the government saying money has value sort of thing, because at least it's the government. But when just some dude on the internet says like my Bitcoin whatever on my website has value, and you get reputation points for using it, I don't ever see how you could translate that to dollars at some point. It doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
you
So
get to
I didn't
speculate.
invest in that website. That's what it came down to. The website was wonky. He also tried to do too many things. I find a lot of clones of websites and clones of just different products in general have uh, they have a problem where they want to throw too many things in at once. So his website was Twitter, but he also had a Reddit function. He also had a groups for Facebook function. He also had this and that. He was going to put a Patreon function in there, and he was going to put a Indiegogo style crowdfund function in there. It was just too much, and sites need to be simple and products need to be simple. This goes for stories too. I would say a lot of what turns me on to the stories that you publish is a lot of the short fiction these days is really trying to hard to like in the general broad establishment sense is really trying hard to trick their audiences all the time. Like they're building you up for a twist, and like it's like you're going along and you're on the Starship Enterprise. Oh, by the way, it's not really the Starship Enterprise. It's really a Hollywood producer, and all the people in there actually think they're it's the John Scalzi red shirts effect where he twisted it, right, where it wasn't
Yeah.
really a Star Trek fan fiction
Well,
when
I
he
can
wrote
tell
it.
you
And
this
you don't
about
do that. You do straightforward storytelling like they used to do in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah, like I can tell you this about the cover story that we're running and serializing for the first 3 issues of this year. An evil megacorporation has used stolen alien technology to become one of the dominant political players on Earth, and it is up to the last Republican president of Earth to stop this alliance between an evil megacorporation and space pirates led by an evil, sexy space pirate queen. And they save the galaxy. Who knows? You'll have to read to find out.
Nice. Um,
Oh, and I'll
I
also throw out there that Michael Tierney is our guy. I'll tell you, yeah, he's
awesome.
our.
He's our guy. It's already not going to work though, because there will never be a Republican president again. I firmly believe that. So
Alas.
yeah. Let's see. Why would we gather in one pen for the slaughter? I don't understand. I 100% agree with that too. That's why I like being all over personally. You had evil mega corporation. Yeah, it's interesting. There was a while there where almost all media, I would say, had evil corporations and corporate style people as villains, and that's kind of disappeared. Villains are no longer corporations. They're always like some like deranged incel now.
Well, see, this one also covers its bases because the evil megacorporation is founded by ethnically diverse Nazis from an alternate timeline in which the Nazis won World War II, except they eventually got defeated by First Nations peoples in America
That's funny.
because the United States had not been there to stop them in Europe. But then a time traveler managed to get things set up to where the First Nations people were able to drive them back and defeat them, destroying their timeline. So they wound up in our universe where they've been trying to recreate their own timeline and barring that using stolen alien technology to establish their own dominance in our world. So but one of the interesting things about this story for people who've been fans of Michael Tierney's Wild Stars series is that this picks up on several of the threads from the original comics from around 2001, I think. So it's like, what have the Artomics been doing for the last couple of volumes? Well, here's what they've been doing. They've been gathering their strength. They're ready to reemerge with all new space dreadnoughts, a pirate alliance, and all sorts of goodies we got for you.
Awesome. I'm going to get your reaction now to this.
Oh, man. Oh, man. I said it before on Twitter. I'll say it now. America is a fake country now, and they're just rubbing it in our faces.
Yeah, it is a rubbing in our faces sort of scenario, from the fake golden microphone to everything. I just can't understand how we got here so fast to where we are the literal. This is a literal Hunger Games moment.
Yeah, but nobody got an arrow through the neck.
Yeah, that's true. Too many Capitol Police around for that. Very bizarre. I was shocked by things this morning. You think we don't have many people here? We've got 23 people here, and Joe Biden only had 100 times more viewers live than I do, as just some guy talking about a short fiction magazine on Kickstarter. Think about that. Like, everything was very bizarre. I'm getting highlights because I couldn't just sit there and like watch their little fake ceremony with everybody wearing masks. Everybody wearing masks makes things creepier to me. Like, it's just like I can't listen to somebody who's wearing a mask talk to me on a screen, you know?
Yeah, no.
One thing I have to compliment Europe for is on most part Europe champions diversity of thought and published entertainment, unlike America. Yeah, Europe really does have that, and it's not just on the political level, Mega Buster. You get into comics, and even prior to the like SJW craze of the last like several years, you look at it's just Marvel and DC. Like, there's no diversity of content there. It was just superhero, cape book, superhero, and you have nothing else, right? I mean, you get Dark Horse and Image trying to get out some books, but those don't even get beyond like issue 6 before they get canceled, right? So it's not just a political diversity that's missing. It's like, as soon as movies are like this now too. Every movie is a superhero movie, right? There's no just like action movies like Die Hard that are just something that's not superhero. There's no
and they even make bad horror movies actually superhero movies. Like,
right.
The last 2 days I've seen The New Mutants and Brightburn, and they were both terrible, absolutely terrible movies.
Okay, so The New Mutants was like Claremont's really return to form, where he's developing some awesome new characters and all that. And what did they do with it in the film? I'm not going to watch it, and I didn't watch it.
Like, practically nothing happens for the first hour of the movie. It's just, them sitting around talking, being boring and gay. And then eventually, the new girl's power is that she makes people's fears turn real.
Wait, being boring and gay, you're not using gay as a euphemism. You mean
no,
literally. Literally.
Like, literally boring, literally gay.
Okay. So, and that's supposed to be a superhero movie. And you said it ended up horror, though, right?
First hour of the movie. Well, they try to frame it as the psychological horror movie, but if you want a psychological horror movie that's kind of X-Men-esque, Freaks is a really good movie.
When you see something like New Mutants, I mean, I would imagine you would just want something like a X-Men movie, like direct, not a psychological horror movie. right?
Like at one point, like eventually, like Silent Hill type monsters start chasing them for a few minutes, and then there's a giant demon bear at the very end.
Oh,
But
so
like the main
they
character,
tried to
who's
do the
the
Demon
hero,
Bear saga thing, but
created all of the monsters that are killing everybody. So,
well, that's what we got.
and then Brightburn was just, what if Superman is autistic and then kills everyone?
Yeah, this is a good point here. There are no real original fantasy movies. What is this? I don't get that either, because you'd figure that once Game of Thrones took hold on the level it did, that everybody and their mother would then like be trying to make fantasy movies, right?
Yeah, and the thing I don't get about why there was so much squabbling over the rights to do the D&D movies. I mean, nobody can even make a good non-branded fantasy movie. So what's the point of trying to make a D&D movie?
Yeah, I agree with that too. But you've got so many properties out there that like you would think we'd have a Mistborn movie, because that Mistborn, the Brandon Sanderson property, not only hits that fantasy note that the Game of Thrones sort of thing does, but it hits the superhero note too, right? So you have both. You have like superheroes in a fantasy world, which is his fancy. So Brandon Sanderson, like he always talks, everybody talks about magic systems with him and all that. But if you want to drill it in core wise, like deep down, he's just putting superheroes into fantasy books, and then he gives a reason for it, like, oh, they ingest metal, and this gives them superpowers, right? And that's Mistborn. And I really liked those books. I'm not trying to knock them too much, but um, that is the simplicity that's there. And I think simplicity works, to be honest, in storytelling. I think I was going off on this on social media platforms, but I think simplicity in storytelling, where you have dudes who have powers and they're fighting an ultimate bad guy who has ultimate bad guy powers, and it seems like a lost cause, but they managed to sneak it out. I mean, it's a very simple storyline, but it works, and I want to see that, you know?
Yeah. And to answer DJ's comment there, my speculation is Game of Thrones was a psyop to get middle-aged women to talk about soft porn at the water cooler at work.
Oh, interesting. That's a good point.
I mean, that's what I was faced with at work back before the pandemic shut everything down, was, the weird old people in their 50s, 60s, like talking about what was going on Game of Thrones. Just like, you guys are just sitting here talking about this weird soft fantasy porn. What's going on in it?
Yeah, that's why I didn't watch it. So I watched like I turned on like the first episode or two, and then then there was like actual incest porn in my face, and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean,
And I just
it's
don't
same
want to watch that.
with like the Spartacus series that they had several years back. It's
It's
like,
pretty much
oh,
every HBO series does that. I remember HBO had a series for no, it was it HBO or was it Cinemax? I don't know. They're all the same, whatever they were. Showtime. I don't remember, but
stars.
there was a show. Yeah, there's a bunch of them, and they've all kind of got that same thing where it's just like, okay, so our show is going to be a show, but we're going to just flash some softcore porn in it, and that's what makes it our channel, right? And so they had a J. Michael Straczynski show, the Babylon 5 guy. Are you Babylon 5 guy like me?
Kind of. Ever since I've rewatched it, I've gravitated more towards Deep Space Nine.
I
But
think
I
is that Razor Fist fault though, because Razor Fist like really goes off on Deep Space Nine.
yeah. Well, also, Straczynski's kind of a dick. So
Yeah, he's more than kind of a dick. He's been a direct, of course. Every major science fiction writer has been a direct dick to me. So you can probably.
I actually got into him with over public domain stuff, and he blocked me.
Yeah, mine was actually in 2012 before politics pervaded everything. He started just posting, politics stuff all day long in the Babylon 5 group, and he went off on creationists, and I'm like, why are you attacking Christians? Like, just stop. And they called me a bunch of names and blocked me. So, and yeah, that sucks. But he is an atheist, and so atheists are going to be deranged and do deranged atheist things. So that's what's going to happen. But I thought Babylon 5 was a tighter story than Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine, which it is, because Deep Space Nine is still like haven't stepped into that all the way yet. They're still episodic for the most part,
Well,
and
they also had
and
more
dip
faith
in the
of being
toe.
renewed. One of the reasons why Deep Space Nine, or why Babylon 5 storytelling was tighter, was they were always on the verge of being canceled.
That's
So they
true.
always had things set up so that they could rein it in by the end of a season, which ultimately, I think, kind of hurt them worse, because by the later seasons, all of the really big important stuff had already been resolved. So
Only the
once
last season. So they went
well,
5 total, right?
I feel like they should have resolved the President Clark stuff before the Shadows. Is like, you defeated these evil space god things. Now to take care of the president.
Right. That's true. Yeah. Maybe that's true, but it also, that resolution where it wasn't clean like that
Yeah,
also felt more natural. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, so we really have gone and focused on all of this, and it's over. And oh gosh, Earth is still a mess, and we still do have this to deal with.
yeah,
And that felt natural, even though that you're right from a building climax perspective, the alien god people are much bigger of a threat than the president.
yeah.
But
Like
I
the
still thought it felt
climactic
better.
moment, really, for Babylon 5 was when he flew the nukes into Zahadum. So
Yeah, they wrapped it up because they were absolutely sure they were going to get canceled at the end of season 4, and so they even put what was supposed to be the last episode. They filmed 2 final episodes. It ended up being, and the episode that ended up being the final episode in season 5 was just a season 4 episode that they held off, and then they put that, like, going million years into the future one at the end of season 4 to wrap things up, in case they didn't get renewed. So it was a weird sort of setup there. But
then
season
they had the
5, they
movies.
and the other stuff happened was, like, because their contracts got all screwed up and all that, they lost, some actors and all that, and had to get Tracy Scoggins in there as the new captain or whatever, because it was supposed to be Ivanova was supposed to become the captain, for the next season, and she bailed because they didn't know if they were going to renew or not. So that happened. The telepath people didn't always renew, so they had to go back and forth on that, and had to bring back that redhead girl at the end.
Yeah.
So there was various issues there, because of the way that just didn't work on a business level. But up through season 4, it worked really well. Yeah, at least it didn't end like Enterprise.
Oh my god, that's the worst ending of just about
It is
any sci-fi show I think I've ever
absolutely
seen.
tragic that they did that.
Especially since that was when Enterprise had really finally hit its stride. Like,
Yes.
I feel like Enterprise, it's not great for a lot of the early seasons, but once it hits its stride, it's got some solid storytelling, and then that just came along and just like,
It was okay. So Enterprise, like, it suffered from prequel syndrome at the beginning, where you're just like, why am I going to care about this? And there's no reason to care about it, right? And then they did this weird time plot thing that was kind of running through the episodes in the background, where it's like, there's temporal creatures who we've never seen before, and they're mucking with everything. And that just didn't ring true to Star Trek, because, again, there's just like these weird creatures we've never seen before, and this is supposed to be a prequel. And so it was tough on that, but most of the episodes were actually okay, watchable, and they were okay. And then it got to season 3, where they decided to do a 9/11 allegory thing, and make a whole season plot out of it, and that dragged really badly. That was their worst mistake. I thought that season 3 was the worst.
yeah.
And then finally they got their footing, like you said, and then that last episode hit. And I don't know, they really went hard on Star Trek in like we think there's franchise fatigue. We think there's franchise. We're going to stop all movies and stop everything and just ditch Star Trek for 10 years thing at that point. And that's a wrong call for a brand always. You see that Marvel Comics kind of did that with Fantastic Four, where they just stopped it. But they did it. They claimed it was to give the franchise a rest, but it was because Sony owned the rights, and they didn't want to like make more comics when Sony was making the movies. But when you do that, it does screw up a franchise. And it's really hard to get it back on track, and especially when you give that much time and that much cultural change, and then too many people involved with the show die or get old and don't work on it anymore, and there's this new crop of people. You get a completely different feel for things when it comes back.
That we never got Deep Space Nine movies.
Right. Well, it's tragic what they did to the Next Generation movies anyway. That Nemesis thing was just a train wreck. And that's the problem when you get these studio guys in there too, is they always want to remake their greatest hits. They're like, Wrath of Khan was great, so let's do it again, but with Picard and Data. It doesn't work. And then let's do it again in Star Trek 2009 Part 2, whatever it was, Into Darkness. That's what it was called. Let's just do it again. So that's what happens with the movies, and unfortunately. And there was this brief time in the 80s where really they could, because Gene Roddenberry still was there and alive and could say yes, they could really experiment and just kind of do what they wanted. And even the actors to some extent. I mean, Leonard Nimoy was like, F it, I'm out. I'm not doing this Spock crap unless you let me direct the movie, right? And so finally that happened. So that, I mean, really that experimentation was like the last point where our real corporate media still like allowed art in the middle of their process for franchises. And that kind of went away when they realized, because they didn't know at that point, right? Star Trek was just kind of coming back. They didn't know it was going to be a generational franchise where we're going to maintain this property. Like, you know, we're going to like Disney, we're going to maintain this Disney princess property and Mickey Mouse for 150 years. And we're going to make the US change their copyright laws so we can keep it. You have a different perspective when you're looking at things and you're 100 years in and you're still trying to churn out that same character than you do. Could have never guessed. So yeah, it changes things to where you're actually, you want to stagnate a franchise to some degree. And that's the whole problem with comics and the whole problem with everything at this point. Yep. Fox. Oh, I'm sorry. It was Fox at the right. I thought it was Sony. I don't know. Whoever it wasn't Disney. Should ditch Star Trek forever. I believe it's okay for franchises to die. We can replace them. Yes, I'm working on that. So you'll, if you are on my Oration War series, that's going to start pushing in that direction. The only comics to film project I'm looking forward to is the Invincible animated series. I couldn't deal with Invincible because, one, too much violence, and number two, that abortion storyline where like it was like multiple issues where he wanted to lecture us about a woman's right to choose, and with teenagers. So you had like a 16, 17-year-old girl in the comic, and she's just like, I'm gonna abort the baby, and it's just like, what the F? And I quit because I'm just not. I don't want to consume that sort of thing. It's like Game of Thrones and porn. Sony has Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four was Fox. Okay, there you go. I posit the reason Star Trek or Star Wars isn't that relevant is because we've had so many space opera series on TV that its uniqueness is gone. Star Trek,
yeah. Well, for Star Wars, yes, because it's sort of the brand X. Star Trek isn't quite space opera in the same way, especially because the different series are very different genres. Yes. Because in a lot of ways, the original series was more like
a Western in space. It was
not a Western in space. Even it was like an issue. If you took an issue of Thrilling Wonder stories and just told all the stories in that issue using the same characters. So that's why you end up with something like, you know, what's basically a submarine captain or a hornblower type story following something crappy like City on the Edge of Forever. Yes, that was one. I don't care what anybody says.
Wow, that's fighting words for a lot of people right there. Yeah, and Star Trek had its own feel to it that unfortunately that somebody mentioned the modern stuff, like it doesn't have, because you had that like really interested look up and reach out into the stars and have that manifest destiny sort of.
Well, and also the thing is
and now they're like opposed to that.
Star Trek series, the episodes were all written by people who were in their prime science fiction writers.
Right.
They were just contributing scripts for the show. Now it's just written by like Hollywood story runners and script writers. It's not the same.
It's really sad. You get that, and you see people and you see these interviews with the writers, and they're just like, I don't even watch science fiction. I just just kind of a job, but it's always been a dream job. It's like, oh gosh, I hate that interview. That I've seen that interview so many times, right? But it's interesting. I don't know. I've been watching through the CBS Access stuff because I got the free trial, and I was like, I want to catch up because I've been just jonesing for Star Trek stuff lately. And I watched Lower Decks, and I didn't hate it. I mentioned that. And then I watched the interview with the guy. So he's the Rick and Morty guy who did that, right? And it's supposed to be a comedy. And I can forgive a little more in a comedy, I feel like, than something serious, just because it's telling me I'm not supposed to take it seriously, right? Yeah. So you better not take it seriously at that point, or it doesn't make sense. And there's laugh moments and there's cringe moments. Just is what it is. But it's kind of, that's what Rick and Morty humor is. But I read an interview with him, and he's just like, I really loved Farscape, and I really loved this aspect of the storytelling of Farscape. And watching him go off on Farscape like that actually gave me a little hope for things, because I'm just like, oh, at least this guy actually likes what he's doing, Yeah. And I don't know anything about the Discovery writers. I watched the first episode of that, like when it was on CBS proper, and I couldn't handle it at the time. I might try it again because I've got this, free trial burning a hole in my life that's going to go away soon. But I don't know. But Picard, so Picard I've been binging first because I like Patrick Stewart because member berries, and it's free trial. And I actually looked at the writers on that, and it is generic Hollywood writers, except for one. There's a woman who she actually did like a bunch of the Voyager novelizations 15 years ago. I actually remembered her name. And so at least there's one person who cares semi about the show on there. So, yeah. Yes, TOS was pitched as Wagon Train to the Stars. So they did pitch it as a space western. And I
really don't think that's what the result of the show was. It's become kind of a meme that's like, oh, it's a western in space. But I mean, the overwhelming majority of episodes, that's not necessarily the case.
There's a couple different types. There's the bottle episodes, of course, which are a little different. But when they beam down to the planets, they do usually, have they roll into town. They're the sheriff, kind of. There's something bad going on, and then they kind of shoot their way out. It is kind of, that's the formula, right? And then the bottle episodes are usually there's a space god, and he thinks he's God, but he's not God, and so they prove he's not God, and then pwn him because of humanity's ability to reason, right?
Yeah. I'd still argue that in terms of storytelling, it's a lot closer to Twilight Zone than typical Western. And Twilight Zone did do a lot of Western, but it's a kind of a weird fiction approach to both Western and space opera.
Yeah, Farscape was one of the best. Farscape had such depth to it. It was really beautiful. It was, again, like on Babylon 5 and Farscape just were a cut above. Me and the Age of Stargate, Andromeda, Battlestar Galactica, Enterprise, and Voyager were just other space operas. I felt Voyager was like kind of they were trying to return to Next Generation from Deep Space Nine, and that vibe, and it worked and it didn't at points. Enterprise, to me, I like on its original run, I couldn't deal with it because I was so mad about them doing a prequel when Star Wars was doing a prequel. I'm just like, come on, and. Like we've talked about, those early seasons just kind of really didn't find its footing. But that's how Star Trek is. Like, I mean, usually all of these series we're talking about, like even Deep Space Nine, like I just rewatched it recently. Those first 2 seasons are freaking hard to get through. And then you get through it and you're like, this is gold. So I almost am willing to give them a couple of seasons to find their footing on that sort of level. And that's what Enterprise was as well. And Voyager kind of didn't really find its footing until it got 7 of 9 either, so we could stare at her ginormous Borg implants.
Voyager was never good.
But Stargate was okay. Like, it wasn't like, it was popcorny, and like it was okay. Andromeda was literally Star Trek. So Gene Roddenberry had a a story outline of Captain Kirk wakes up 3,000 years in the future, and then hijinks ensue. The Federation's gone, and they had that, and it was like a fragment, and they just developed Andromeda from there, and then called it Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda, and then took Star Trek out of it and made some silly Nietzschean people. Battlestar Galactica was a reboot, and that's really the start of like, we're gonna do full story arcs and not episodic things, and it's gonna be dark. And that was kind of like the change in tone and then everything became generic dark space science fiction after that. Everything after that, I think, is just like eminently forgettable. Personally. What about Firefly? Firefly is only loved by people because it was canceled.
Firefly is cringe. Everything that's not Adam Baldwin doesn't hold up. All of its best stuff was stolen from Outlaw Star and Cowboy Bebop.
Wow. Yeah, I kind of actually agree with that. But yeah, I mean, because it was canceled, everybody had like this attitude of what could have been. And it's like everybody loves Nirvana because Kurt Cobain killed himself. Same thing. Like, Nirvana was not that good. I'm sorry. Sorry, Gen Xers. I just lost my entire audience with that. Voyager Star Trek version of Lost in Space. Yeah, I can see that. And I think that covers all of them. I don't even remember anything that comes after that because, like, again, they just went generic dark space sci-fi setting, and I don't know. I want something different. I'm wanting something optimistic now, and so I'm just going to write it myself and just ignore these people. I want optimism. Is that so much to ask? When I'm staring at this face, I just want to know that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. All right, that exhausts our Star Trek talk. I don't know how we got on that, but I know how I got on that. I was talking about J. Michael Straczynski, and I was talking about porn on HBO. We're gonna get back to this. So HBO and all those shows always like put boobs and porn into everything, like, and that's kind of their selling point, is they're edgier, and you can as a teenage boy, you can wait till your parents are asleep and see some boobs in the 90s.
Yeah, now they're going to do it to Lord of the Rings, too.
Now they're going to do it to Lord of the Rings. It's disgusting. And that's what they did. So J. Michael Straczynski got a show on one of those channels. It was called Jeremiah. And it was a post-apocalyptic show. It was pretty interesting. And actually a really good plot, too. And it got canceled after 2 seasons. It was...
oh, yeah. I think I actually saw some of that.
It was really good. And it had Luke Perry, and Luke Perry talked like this because he's Luke Perry.
Luke Perry ended up in a lot of mediocre, okay science fiction.
He really did. And Jeremiah was one of my highly recommend finding this. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere or anything, but it's really worth watching.
Like years ago, it's probably not anymore.
But because of the network, and he had to work under the operation of the network, they had to do the whole like boobs thing. So of course they have a scene where they walk into a post-apocalyptic bar, and there's just a bunch of topless women dancing around, because that's how all these fantasy shows go on these series, right? And he just put that in there in the first episode, and then they never did it again. So they did it for the pilot so they could get bought as a series, and that was it. Okay, well that's it. We're over an hour now, and I have to work in. I'm sure you have to work probably too.
Yeah.
So support Kursova Magazine. He's nicer than me, much nicer than me. Wouldn't you say?
In many cases.
Yeah,
not
he's
all
nicer
cases.
than me. And I like it, and I backed it, so you can know it's good work because of that. Because I wouldn't.
One thing I'll add: we are going to be getting a Ginzo Man cover, hopefully in the next couple of days. You can also back for the original interior illustrations from Dark Philly. We'll mail those out to you with your books.
Cool.
And if you like that Chin cover, I can also send you my painting of Chin.
Awesome. Well, all right. With that, we'll be back soon, guys. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out. Appreciate everybody who's here. Appreciate everybody who subscribes and likes all this stuff. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. And of course, the people who read the books, you guys are wonderful, and you're the whole reason we do this. and I appreciate you guys being a cut above the standard HBO audience. How about that? Good night, America.
It's been a lot of fun. Bye, everybody.